Okay, this is Sama Daniel Boni. I'm continuing on the series Economic Revolution. This video I'm making now is a continuation of that. God has instructed me to focus on corporate liberty, corporate freedom. Uh, he said when I focus on this, when when I find a headway in this, everything will fall into place. He said when he said there are two things I have to do. When I do those two things, and then he will he will give me a word on corporate liberty, corporations, and the government. How do you separate them? You know, like they say, separation of church and government. Well, corporate liberty, separation of corporations and government. How does that work? So he said he would give me a word on that when I do two things. The two things he instructed me to do. He instructed me to go out and get the public to ask the government to answer two questions. This is my assignment. I have to do this. I know it might take months for me to do this. It might take a while, but this economic revolution series, this is what I'll be working on over the next few months. There are two things I need to get the public to pressure the government to release two informations. Number one, the government needs to release who they owe. We need to get the public to pressure the government to release who they owe. This is the first thing they have to release to the public. Who do they owe? What projects was the money used to do? I know it will be a difficult thing to get them to do it, but God told me I have to somehow get the public to pressure the government to release this information. Who does the government owe money? The $15 trillion. They need to tell the public who they owe what projects. They have to make that public. What projects were done. Second thing they have to release to the public. The public gave them $2 trillion. Where did that money go? This is the second thing they have to release to the public. Where did $2 trillion go? What did they do with it? Some people are talking we're going to do a road project. They never did it. So we haven't seen any projects. So where did $2 trillion go? These are two things God told me to get the public to ask the government to release this information, and then he would talk to us. So I know it'll be difficult. I know the perpetrators of these economic problems, they're still behind will try to prevent this information from coming public. And our congressmen, our senators, those in government, those at the very top echelon, they might not know the details of how these things flow. So their subordinates might keep them from information like this kind of videos. They might prevent them from getting it, so they can hide that information. But my job this next few months is to pressure the government, is to pressure the public, is to get the public to pressure the government to release those two information. Very important. Those are two things we'll have to get the public to get the government to release those two information. Very, very important. God told me to do. Now the question is, why would an African come into America and engage in an act like this? Why would I be concerned with what America does with its money? I live here. Why? This is the question I might go to mind. Why is an African concerned about this? What does this got to do with him? This is what it got to do with me. If I'm in a position to serve the public and I don't do it, I'll be required of it by God. One, the perpetrators of these acts of wickedness that brought the recession, They will continue to use money to keep the public in slavery so they can continue perpetrating their wicked acts. If nobody stands up to them, they'll keep doing it and doing it and doing it. So, as a service to the public, and liberation of America means liberation of the world. So, as a service to the public, and not only the public but the world, we have to demand this level of accountability. Think about it. If you give every single American $1 million free money, there are 300 million people in this country, 300 million. If you give everybody 1 million, that would be 300 billion. That would be $300 billion. That is not even up to a quarter of the money that was given to the government. If every American had $1 million, I'm saying we're living good, and they gave them each $1 million, each. It would be $300 billion. That's still not a quarter of $2 trillion, the money that was given to the government. So we need to understand, where did that money go? Very important. They say they owe $15 trillion. We need to know what projects they did with $15 trillion. These two things the public has to know. They have to release this information. We have to get and this is true service. This is what you call true service. A person that goes out to war and fights will not accomplish half of what I'm about to accomplish, but I do it at great risk. But I also do it because I know Jesus sent me. Because Jesus sent me, I know the amount of spiritual power He's protected me. Constantly, I'm attacked at night. But Jesus keeps on for me. They try to attack me. They try to inflict me with different diseases. So it is, even what I do might seem easy, but it's not. I do that great risk. They try to kidnap me. They try to kill me. They've made too many attempts, but I have the ability to do these kind of things that nobody else will do, because I know I've been sent by God. If I wasn't sent by God, I wouldn't do them, because people get killed for it. They kidnap them, they kill them, they attack them at night, and there are a lot of risk involved in doing this. But I'm doing it because I know God sent me to do it. If God didn't send me to do it, I wouldn't risk doing it. And some people will say, well, if this investigation goes on now, then the economy will eventually get better, and that might disprove some prophecies we've heard about economic depression or recession. This is my answer to that kind of reasoning that sometimes comes into the minds of some people. If God puts out a prophecy, if He's the one that spoke it, it'll come to pass. There's nothing that any human being can do to stop that. God will close the door that no man can open the door that no man can close. If it is God that said it, there's no human being on this earth that can stop it from being accomplished. So, if God said anything, there's nothing we human beings have to do on our part to try to help Him to accomplish His word. If it's His word, He has the power in and of Himself to accomplish His word without the help of any human being. This is one thing we have to remember first. If God said something, He will bring it to pass. If it's God that said it, He will bring it to pass, regardless of mine or anybody else's best effort to prevent that thing from coming to pass. Because God will open a door that no man can close, and close a door that no man can open. God has that power. So, that being said, it still comes back to, we're pushing. I know it might take a while to get this going, but God has told me that there's two things I have to do. Then He'll give a word about that, and then when that is fixed, everything else will fall into line. A lot of things will fall into line. But there are two things that the government today. What's today's date? Today is Monday, January 28th, 2013. Yes. Monday, January 28, 2013. Monday, January 28th. It's being read reverse, but I'm putting it reverse, but that's the date I'm making this video. I'm making this video on a Monday, January 28th, 1 week before school starts, spring break starts. So what is going to happen is there are two things that I'm working on. The government has to release two things to the public. I have to get the public to pressure the government. This is what God instructed me. I have to get the public to pressure the government to release two pieces of information. What projects did they do to owe $15 trillion? They have to put that out there. And then, where did $2 trillion go? If you give every American $1 million, it'll only be $300 billion. So where did $2 trillion disappear to? And we're talking about an economic cliff. It means $2 trillion disappeared into thin air. We need to find out where that money went. Right? It's almost 5 years now since that money was given to the government. So we need to find out two pieces of information. One, who do they owe? What projects were done to owe $15 trillion? You need to put times what projects so the public can go and verify those projects. Number two, they need to put out where did the $2 trillion go that taxpayers gave them? Where did it go? These two pieces of information, God said when the government releases those two pieces of information, however long it takes for us to, the public to pressure them to release that information, then he'll give me a word on corporate liberty, the separation of corporation and government. Corporations want freedom, so God has a word for that, and that's what I will be focusing on. Alright, let me stop here for now.